Good evening. I'll call to order the Monday, February 3rd, 2025 Somersworth City Council meeting to order. City Clerk, if you wouldn't mind, please call the roll.
Counselor Pepin.
Yep.
Vincent.
I am here.
Gibson.
Here.
Parity Catanzaro. Here. Michaud.
Here.
Witham.
Here.
Goodwin.
Here.
Cameron. Here. Barry.
Excused. And for the record, the mayor is excused. He's not feeling well tonight, so appreciate your patience dealing with me. Councilor Vincent will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor. Brings us to agenda item number 3, which is our recognition of Indigenous people, our Native ancestral Americans. This meeting takes place on Endokina, which is the unceded traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. We acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land, waterways, living beings, and the Alnabek, the people who have stewarded Endokina throughout the generations. Brings us to agenda item number 4, which is public hearings. We have one public hearing this evening on ordinance number 14-25, which is to amend Chapter 12, Streets and Sidewalks, Section 12.1, Excavate, Obstruct, and Encumber Work Schedule. Does anybody wish to comment on this ordinance change this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to agenda item number 5, which is comments by visitors. The Somersworth City Council welcomes comments by visitors. Your time is limited to 5 minutes. That can be suspended by a vote of the Somersworth City Council. Comments cannot be directed at any city councilor, city official, and we cannot enter into any debate. Are there any comments by visitors here this evening? Yes, please. Good evening and welcome. Yeah, is the green light on? There's a little button at the bottom of the microphone right there. The very
Should be on.
Should be on. Okay. Thank you, everyone. My name is Joe Kenny. I'm District 1 Executive Counselor. And usually at the beginning of each 2-year term, I get a chance to get into the local boards and just introduce myself. The Executive Council, as you know, for most of you, is kind of a unique form of position in state government, whereby we vote on all state contracts, $10,000 or more. We vote on commissions and appointments and judicial nominations that the governor puts forth. We'll be having a governor and council meeting this Wednesday. And so we have, I think, about 133 items on the agenda. I've seen many contracts that impact Somersworth over the years. And so it's always good to hear from the council or people in Somersworth about things that are important to them, particularly with these contracts or different trends in state government that I need to watch out for. We have a new governor, Kelly Ayotte. So as we always like to say with the new incoming governor, what do you need to know, governor? You need to know how to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. No action is taking place on the council without 3 votes. There are 5 councilors I represent from the Canadian border all the way down to Dover, Durham. So it's a large district, and I find myself on the road quite a bit. I think last year we took a train ride to Somersworth and stopped here in Somersworth just to give a little history about North Coast, and we headed to Wakefield to celebrate their 250th anniversary via train. So that was kind of different, and we had the governor on board along with the councilors. We also have one important thing that you might want to track this year is that we start the 10-year highway plan process in late spring, and so we'll have public hearings throughout the summer and the fall to discuss what's going to be on the next 10-year highway plan. So that's always interesting because you have a lot of infrastructure items that will impact roads, bridges, or other water and sewage, or anything else that you can think of that would be in the 10-year highway plan. Obviously, the state has done a lot of put a lot of money towards broadband, rural broadband kind of funding, if you will. And it's a desire the next 2 to 3 years to have New Hampshire 100% broadband coverage. So that's exciting news. We're getting away from the ARPA funding. The federal funding, as you know, is kind of going away. Most of it's been programmed. We spent probably close to $1 billion in New Hampshire once that money was available. And so as a result, a lot of that you'll see go away here in the next year because any projects that were programmed will probably be working on this year, from housing projects to from community center projects to anything else that was really impacted by ARPA. So, but I just wanted to stop in just to introduce myself. I hail from Wakefield. I think I'm in my 6th term as an executive counselor. I got redistricted a couple of years ago into Somersworth, Dover, and Durham area. And so I went to Spalding High School. Don't hold that against me. But it's always nice to see some familiar faces. And again, my office is always open. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say hello.
Thank you. Appreciate you spending time with us this evening, and you're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any further comments by visitors this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to agenda item number 7, which is comments by city council. Is there any comments by city councilors? Councilor Vincent, you're recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Executive Counselor Kinley, for coming out. And, Somersworth is the smallest city in the state, and we need really all the help we can get because it just seems like there's a lot of, it seems like more burden money-wise on us. So I really appreciate you coming out and recognizing, and I appreciate that. Well, we're moving into the budget season, which is always a wonderful thing. I've been getting a lot of phone calls from my constituents on how much more we can take, so to speak. I know it's we had a budget workshop with the school tonight, and I'm not going to comment too much on that. It's like that's like work in progress. But I know it's going to be tough. We've talked about it. It's going to be a tough struggle here. One of my examples is I had a constituent that called me and said, "Hey, listen, my tax increased by $1,700. And normally, on a regular year, it would increase anywhere from $500 to $600. He goes, I just took a 3-year hit in 1 year. So I know it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be tough. But, and we have a city that we need to maintain. And it's a balance, maintaining but not bankrupting. So I know for this one counselor, because I'm not going to speak for others, that it's going to be tough, and it's I always seem to say this, it's like it might not hurt me because I'm young enough to still continue to work and bring the income in, but the people that are on fixed incomes of $25,000, and I might be being nice, can't afford it. Unfortunately, taxes go up almost all the time. It never changes. It's not going to go backwards normally. So we have some real big challenges. And like every year, we're going to most likely get past it and try to do the best we can. Thank you.
Further comments by council members? Councilor Gibson, you're recognized.
What Councilor Vincent said, I agree with 100%. I live in an area, Sherwood Glen, that is a mobile home park, and the reassessment amounted to almost a 75% increase in the property taxes for some as much as over 100%. So the growth of the city doesn't seem to be distributing benefits across the board. And the tragic thing is, as Councilor Vincent said, that there are a lot of people on fixed incomes or low income living in places like Sherwood Glen. And they're going to have a very tough year ahead of them, particularly since, as one other councilor mentioned, everything's going up 25%. But it's not going to hurt anybody. The Budget season is the toughest thing to deal with. I wish we could do it like the state every 2 years. But that's not the case. Sir, if you do have the ear of the governor, if you can convince her to find a way to help out the communities like Somersworth, and there's a lot of them in the state. We're not all fortunate enough to have a huge property tax base that spreads the cost around more equitably because of either resort property or commercial industrial. The communities in this state needed relief from the burden of subsidizing the fact that the state will not carry its fair share of the burden. And as somebody once said, the New Hampshire advantage, no sales, no income tax, is great if you're an upper income individual. For anybody who's not, and there was an example a number of years ago, one of our ex-governors had a property that his tax burden on his property represented only about 10% of his income, whereas a typical person in the state was paying 25 to 30% of that in their property taxes. So as your money goes up, your tax burden goes down in New Hampshire. So one of these days, whether it's now or later, the state's going to have to face realities, or they're going to be paying prices. As the superintendent said, states like New Hampshire seem to think that public education is a luxury. It's not. Many of us went to public schools. I think pretty much everybody here did. And without it, I wouldn't have attended college. And I was able to get through college, and I'm here now. And I thank the public schools of New Hampshire for the education that they gave me. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments by council members this evening? Seeing none, that brings us to agenda item number 8, which is communications.
Point of order, Your Honor.
Councilor Vincent.
I'm sorry, did we skip over 6 consent calendar?
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Being a steward of the agenda. So we'll backtrack to agenda item number 6, which is the consent calendar. Chair will entertain a motion on the consent calendar. Councilor Vincent is moving for the adoption of the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Seconded by Councilor Pepin. Any discussion on the consent calendar? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The consent calendar is adopted. That brings us to agenda item number 9, which is presentations of petitions and disposal thereof. We have no petitions this evening. Agenda item number 10 is the mayor's report. The mayor is not here, so we will forego with the mayor's report this evening. Brings us to agenda item number 11, which is reports of standing committees. I'll begin with a report out of the Finance Committee, which took place on January 29th. All members were in attendance. I would note that Councilor Cameron was a mayoral appointment in place of Councilor Berry for the Finance Committee. We met off-site over at the fire department in their training room for a rather narrow agenda, but an important one nonetheless. The first item on our agenda was an agreement amendment with Stewart's Ambulance Service. I think as the general public knows, we have a contract ambulance service here in the city with Stewart's Ambulance. We've enjoyed that for many, many years. That has been a $0 contract, providing us with paramedic level care with almost 2 ambulances around the clock, and additional ambulances as necessary. Due to a number of factors in our current landscape, the ability for Stewart's to continue to deliver that service on a $0 contract basis has become unachievable. We have met with representatives from Stewart's Ambulance. Several of them are here this evening. Thank you for being here. To talk about a phased approach to implementing a contract with them over the next several years. In year one, we'd be about $50,000. Year two, about double that. And ultimately, by the time we get to year four, we're paying just shy of $300,000 for the service, which is in line with the CPI. So it's a gradual transition into this process. This was unanimously agreed to by the Finance Committee. It is recognized that even at almost $300,000 in year four, that it is still far less than what many other communities our size are paying for their EMS service. So this is a very good contract, and the Finance Committee certainly supports that amendment. So, and would maintain level of care and preparedness that we currently have here in the city for a long-term engagement with Stewart's. The other item that we addressed was a contract amendment for CMA engineers. I'll try to be brief here. We went out to bid for replacement of a sidewalk on High Street between West High and South Street. We had no bidders for that particular sidewalk. It's estimated to be about $1 million project. There were absolutely no contractors that bid on this scope of work. We have pulled out of our paving contract, which bids are due anytime, that section of High Street, and we're now lumping the paving of that section of High Street with the sidewalk as a new bid document. CMA engineers doing the engineer work for the sidewalk is now responsible for the engineer work for incorporating that with the road paving. So there was a slight increase with CMA engineers to deal with that, unanimously supported by the Finance Committee. Under miscellaneous, both Councilor Vincent and myself spoke about the pending budget season and some of the difficulties that we anticipate with the upcoming budget season. I think as Councilor Vincent indicated, budgets are always difficult. I think they'll just be particularly so this year, given the fact that it aligns with the 5-year required revaluation that we've recently gone through. So that just makes it a bit more problematic. That'll conclude the report of the Finance Committee. I'll go next to Public Safety because it dovetails nicely with the Finance Committee. So Councilor Pepin, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. We met on January 29th at the Somersworth Fire Station. Councilman Barry was unable to attend, so Cameron filled in for her. We met with the representatives from Stewart's Ambulance. Vice President Chris Hogan was there. Executive Chairman Jason Van Ethan was there, which gave us a nice letter of the reasoning why the increases were there, and also board member Paul Robidas, which we all know here very well. The first thing was on the agenda was the Stewart Ambulance Agreement. Van Ethan basically went through the whole detail of the reasoning why the increases, and it says covert is that the medicals is increased so much, the ambulances, all the supplies, and also the personnel. To keep good personnel, you have to pay a lot more money. He also explained that in the last few years that out of private ambulances that supply ambulance service between cities and towns, at least 1 out of every 4 are going out of business. Is getting to the point now that it's a very, very hard place to make any money without charging at all. And the increases on the charging are getting very, very increase. And also that the New Hampshire Insurance Commission basically has taken the position that they feel that ambulance service should fall under the same category as police and fire, that they don't charge anything, so that the city should be picking up the fee for it. So we had a very, very lengthy discussion. In fact, I got 2 pages of discussions here that we ended up having a lot of questions to them and whatever. And we voted 4-0 to support the contract that's been agreed between Stewart Ambulance and the city manager and the finance officer, so we are looking to support that. Also, under miscellaneous, we did have one thing that was brought up. The fire chief brought up that they have a proposal for a grant that he submitted, which is time sensitive, so hopefully it will be brought forward tonight, and we have a second reading on it. It's a hazardous mitigation assistant program grant. This has to be done every 5 years. It has to be in by February 14th, so if we could have a second reading on it, we appreciate it tonight, so we can actually put that grant in and see if we can get some funding for it. The matching grant, the New Hampshire Department of Safety will give $11,249. The city's matching point will be $3,750 for the total project of $14,999. We did have a brief discussion on MRI as far as the recruiting for the new police chief and also the city manager. Hopefully the applications should be in by February 10th, and we should start getting some information on that. And we adjourned at 5:15.
Thank you, Counselor. Brings us to Economic Development. Counselor Goodwin?
No report.
Thank you. Go to Recreation, Counselor Cameron. No report. Thank you. Public Works and the Environment Committee has not met. I will go to Government Operations, Counselor Mishu.
We have not met, Your Honor.
Very good. That concludes reports of standing committees. Brings us to Agenda Item 12, reports of special committees. Are there any reports of special committees here this evening? Seeing none, City Manager, you're recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of Council, offer the following comments this evening in regards to tonight's agenda. Under unfinished business, to amend Chapter 12, this is the so-called winter moratorium where you can't excavate in the city's right-of-way from November 15th through April 15th. And if passed, this would provide the manager the same waiver authority council approved in regards to the city's noise ordinance several months ago. Again, under unfinished, we have Resolution 3325 to notify the tax collector not to accept tax deeds on certain properties located on Wexford Lane and Blackwater Road, subject to unredeemed tax liens. Again, Finance Committee supports this resolution being passed, and the recommendation again is not to accept based on the land containing buried debris which would require unknown cleanup costs on the Wexford Lane properties and additional costs for a dilapidated mobile home unit on regards to the Blackwater Road property. And again, automatically when it goes to tax deed, the tax collector has to accept a deed unless the governing body, and that being the city council, votes not to accept it for a particular reason allowed under the statute. Under new business, ordinance 1525, regards to amending chapter 13 police offenses, section 4, regarding dogs, regarding revised definitions to include dogs at large. The Public Safety Committee met on January 15th and voted to recommend this ordinance change to the full council. I provided you information from Chief Macklin regarding his recommended ordinance changes that were accepted and being moved forward to the full council by the Public Safety Committee. And I did provide you a red line document in regards to that. As usual, I recommend a public hearing at the next regular council meeting on February 18th.
We will schedule that public hearing without objection. Thank you.
Thank you. Under Resolutions 3425 is in regards to authorizing the city manager to amend the contract with Beta Group of Manchester, New Hampshire to provide contract administration and construction inspection services associated with the replacement of the water main on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road to Netto Street. Again, this was vetted through committee, the Finance Committee in particular. They met on January 15th and voted to support staff's recommendation to amend Beta's contract. And I gave you a copy of the proposal being submitted by Beta. Resolution 3525 is in regards to authorizing the city manager to contract with GVC Construction of Lunenburg, Massachusetts, to replace the water main on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road to Netto Street. Again, our Finance Committee is recommending full council support contracting with GVC Construction, and I provide you information that the Public Works Director provided to me along with Beta's recommendation to award the contract to GVC Construction. We did receive 7 bids for this particular project, so there was some competition. Resolution 3625, regarding the council voting to authorize a bond to replace the water main on Main Street from Indigo to Netto Street. The Finance Committee again met on January 15th and voted to support this bond to the full council. I provided you information from Finance Director Smith regarding the funding source through the Bond Bank of New Hampshire, Municipal Bond Bank. I recommend a public hearing, which is required by our charter, at the next regular meeting on February 18th.
And, yeah, we will schedule that without objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Resolution 3725, in regards to authorizing the city manager to amend the contract with Stewart's Ambulance Service to provide financial support and to extend the term of the agreement. Again, as reported out by the 2 chairs of Public Safety and Finance, went through this with representatives from Stewart's Ambulance. I provided the information that was provided to the committee in your packet, and I also provided the proposed contract amendments. And there's just 2 particular sections in the contract that you need to focus on, otherwise it's the same as the prior contract. There's a new term for 5 years, which runs from 7/1/25 to 6/30/30, and also the right to extend the term for 3 additional years. Starting in 7/1/25, $65,000 would be provided, and then it rolls up 7/1/26 to $130,000, 7/1/27 to $215,000, 7/1/28 to $296,000, and 7/1/29 it'll be $296 plus the CPI as outlined in the new agreement. As reported out by the Public Safety Chair, Resolution 3825 authorizes the city manager to enter into grant agreement with New Hampshire Department of Safety, Division of Homeland Security Emergency Management for a Hazardous Mitigation Assistance Program grant. I provided you information that Fire Chief Matt Moore sent to me in regards to this grant opportunity. And the application, the initial application is due next Friday, February 14th, which is prior to the next regular meeting. So I would respectfully request that the council consider waiving its rules for a second reading and a vote this evening, Your Honor. Resolution 3925 authorizes the manager, if approved, to contract with Wright Pierce Engineers of Portsmouth, New Hampshire for engineering design services for the replacement of a water main, both on Indigo Hill Road and Rochester Road. Again, this was vetted through the Finance Committee, and they are recommending we move forward with contracting with Wright Pierce Engineering. Again, I provided you information from Public Works Director Babinski, along with information provided by Wright Pierce Engineering regarding the project. So that was all contained in your packet. And in regards to other, a vote to request the Secretary of State's assistance in scheduling a special state election to fill the vacant District 12 state representative seat. Upon your vote, Your Honor, as the governing body, you need to vote to forward a request to the Secretary of State's office in order to start scheduling this special election, special state election, and that the Secretary of State will forward that request to the Governor and Executive Council for final authorization to move forward with that election, along with the town of Rollinsford, because it straddles both Somersworth and Rollinsford, this particular representative seat. Thank you, Your Honor. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Manager Belmore. Brings us to agenda item number 13, which is nominations, appointments, and elections. We have several before us this evening. First item is George Gilmet for appointment as a member of the Planning Board for a term of 3 years. What is the wish of the council? Councilor Pepin. Councilor Pepin moves the appointment of George Gilmet, seconded by Councilor Vincent. Any discussion? All in favor of the appointment to George Gilmet as a member of the Planning Board for a term of 3 years signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Welcome aboard, Mr. Gilmet. I see him in the audience here tonight. Second agenda item under nominations, appointments, and elections are members of the Ethics Commission for a term of 3 years. There are 5 being proposed: Maureen Jackman, Jessica Paradis, Peter Hood, Donald Austin, and Todd Marsh. What is the wish of the council? Councilor Pepin.
Make a motion to accept all 5.
Councilor
second
Pepin
that.
moves that we approve all 5 nominees for the Ethics Commission, seconded by Councilor Vincent. Any discussion?
No, well, yes.
Councilor Cameron, you're recognized.
They are all highly qualified candidates to be on this board. Many of them have served on city council and school board, and I think they'd be a great addition. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Councilor Vincent.
Thank you, Your Honor, and I agree exactly what the Councilor Cameron said. And not to jump back, I just wanted to say this, and I kind of missed the boat, and I apologize, Your Honor. George Gilmet was a part of the city here, fire service here, and he's been living here, I think, his whole life in the city. What a great addition. Thank you, George. Anyway, I just feel that all 5 candidates are top-notch. They've all had involvement here in the city. There ain't one of them that haven't, so I think they're a really good group of candidates. Thank you.
You're welcome. And when you said you wanted to go back, I got nervous that I screwed up on the agenda again, so I feel a little bit better now. So thank you for that. Sorry. Any further comments on the nominees before us for the Ethics Commission? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, and the Ethics Commission is approved. And I hope that they never have to meet. So that is the goal. Brings us to agenda item number 14, which is lay on the table. There are no items on the table this evening. Brings us to agenda item number 15, which is unfinished business. First is ordinance number 14-25. Turn it over to the city clerk for a second reading on ordinance number 1425.
Ordinance number 1425 to amend Chapter 12, Streets and Sidewalks, Section 12.1, excavate, obstruct, or encumber work schedule.
Ordinance number 1425, having been read a first and second time and subject to a public hearing here this evening, is now before you for any amendments. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion on ordinance number 1425. Councilor Gibson.
I move it be accepted as presented.
Councilor Gibson moves for the adoption of ordinance number 1425, seconded by Councilor Cameron. Discussion. Seeing none, city clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro. Yes. Michaud.
Yes.
Ordinance number 14-25 is adopted. Brings us to unfinished business under resolutions. Resolution number 3325. City clerk is referenced for a second reading on the resolution.
Resolution number 3325, to notify the city tax collector that the city council shall not accept a tax deed on properties located on Wexford Lane and Blackwater Road, subject to an unredeemed tax lien.
Resolution number 3325, having been read a first and second time, is before you for any amendment. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion on the resolution. Councilor Vincent.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion that we move on resolution 33-25.
Councilor Vincent moves for the adoption of resolution 3325, seconded by Councilor Pepin. Discussion. Seeing none, city clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro. Yes. Michaud.
Yes.
Resolution 3325 is adopted. Thank you. Brings us to agenda item number 16, which is new business. Under ordinances, ordinance number 1525. City clerk will read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 1525, to amend Chapter 13, Police Offenses, Section 4, Dogs, regarding revised definitions to include dogs at large, February 3rd, 2025. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the ordinances of the City of Somersworth as amended be further amended as follows. Amend Chapter 13, Section 4, Dogs, A, definitions by adding the following definitions. Accompanied shall be intended to mean the owner or custodian must be able to see and or hear the dog or have reasonable knowledge of where the dog is and be able to recall the dog on command. At large shall be intended to mean off the premises of the owner or keeper unless accompanied by the owner. At no time shall any dog be permitted on the private property of another person without the permission of said person. Amend Chapter 13, Section 4, Dogs, A, definitions, owner, by deleting it in its entirety and replace it with the following. Owner shall mean any person keeping, harboring, or having charge or control of, or permitting any dog to habitually be or remain on, or be lodged or fed within such person's house, yard, or premises within the city of Somersworth. This term shall not apply to veterinarians or kennel operators temporarily maintaining dogs owned by others on their premises. Amend Chapter 13, Section 4 Dogs, A, Definitions, Enforcement Officer by deleting it in its entirety and replace it with the following. Enforcement officer shall mean any police officer, animal control officer, or any other person so designated by the chief of police. Amend Chapter 13, Section 4 Dogs, B, license required by striking dispose of and replace it with investigate. Amend Chapter 13, Section 4 Dogs, G, seizure of unlicensed dogs, Section 1, by deleting it in its entirety and replace it with the following. The enforcement officer shall seize any dog not properly licensed as required by Chapter 466 of the New Hampshire Revised Statutes anointed, as amended, and transport it to the Pope Memorial Humane Society, the Somersworth Police Department, or other suitable shelter. The dog shall be kept for a period not to exceed 10 days. If after such time the dog remains unclaimed, then the dog may be surrendered or disposed of at the expense of the city. Amend Chapter 13, Section 4 Dogs, J, running at large by deleting it in its entirety and replace it with the following. Running at large. A person who owns or keeps a dog within the city shall not permit or allow such dog to be at large in the city unless 1. The dog is restrained by being kept on a leash capable of controlling said dog, or 2. The dog is accompanied by the owner or custodian and under their voice control. Amend Chapter 13, Section 4 Dogs, O, civil forfeiture, violation penalty, Sections 2 and 3 by deleting it in its entirety and replace it with the following. 2. Any person who pays a civil forfeiture 2 times in a 12-month period or fails to pay a civil forfeiture shall be issued a summons to appear in circuit court. 3. Any person convicted of a violation of this section shall be fined in accordance with the fines prescribed in New Hampshire RSA 466:31-A. Where penalties for violation of this section are not defined by the aforementioned statute, a fine of not less than $100 shall be imposed. Each day a violation occurs shall constitute a separate violation. This ordinance shall take effect upon passage. Sponsored by Councilors Martin Pepin, Kenneth S. Vincent, Laura Berry, approved City Attorney.
Ordinance number 1525 will remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting, at which time we will hold a public hearing. Brings us to agenda item 16, new business resolutions, resolution 34-25. City Clerk will read the resolution.
Resolution number 3425, to authorize the city manager to amend the contract with Beta Group, Inc. of Manchester, New Hampshire, to provide contract administration and construction inspection services associated with the replacement of the water main on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road to Nadeau Street. February 3rd, 2025. Whereas the City Council adopted Resolution 2723 on February 6, 2023, to authorize the city manager to contract with Beta Group, Inc. of Manchester, New Hampshire, for engineering and design services to replace the water main on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road to Nadeau Street, the project. And whereas city staff requested a proposal from Beta Group, Inc. to provide contract administration and construction inspection services associated with the project. And whereas the Finance Committee has reviewed the proposal with city staff and supports amending the contract with Beta Group, Inc. for an amount of $171,040 to provide contract administration and construction inspection services associated with the project, and recommends including a contingency in the amount of $8,960. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to amend the contract with Beta Group, Inc. of Manchester, New Hampshire to provide contract administration and construction inspection services associated with the replacement of the water main on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road to Nadeau Street for an amount of $171,040, and be it further resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager may increase the contract by an additional $8,960 for contingencies to an amount not to exceed $180,000, and to take any and all other such actions relative to this contract to be determined in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Councilors David A. Witham, Martin Pepin, Kenneth S. Vincent, Laura Berry, approved City Attorney.
I feel like I should stall so the city clerk can catch her breath. There's a lot of reading there, and there's more to come. I apologize in advance. Resolution 3425 will remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting. Brings us to Resolution 35-25. City Clerk.
Resolution number 3525, to authorize the city manager to contract with GVC Construction of Lunenburg, Massachusetts to replace the water main on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road to Nadeau Street. February 3rd, 2025. Whereas the City Council adopted Resolution 2723 on February 6, 2023, to authorize the city manager to contract with Beta Group, Inc. of Manchester, New Hampshire for engineering and design services to replace the water main on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road to Nadeau Street, the project. And whereas Beta Group, Inc. prepared bid specifications and solicited bids on behalf of the city from qualified contractors for the project. And whereas Beta Group, Inc. analyzed the results of the bids received and recommends a contract be awarded to GVC Construction of Lunenburg, Massachusetts for the project. And whereas the Finance Committee has reviewed the recommendation with city staff and supports awarding the contract to GVC Construction for an amount of $1,572,417 for the project and recommends including a contingency for the project in the amount of $157,241. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to contract with GVC Construction of Lunenburg, Massachusetts to replace the water main on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road to Nadeau Street for an amount of $1,572,417, and be it further resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager may increase the contract by an additional $157,241 for contingencies to an amount not to exceed $1,729,658, and take any and all other such actions relative to this contract determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Councilors David A. Witham, Martin Pepin, Kenneth S. Vincent, Laura Berry, approved city attorney.
Resolution 3525 remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting. Brings us to Resolution 3625. Would you believe it has to do with the same water main? City Clerk.
Resolution number 3625. City Council vote to authorize a bond to replace the water main on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road to Nadeau Street. February 3rd, 2025. Whereas the city solicited bids from qualified contractors to replace the water main on Main Street from Indigo Hill Road to Nadeau Street, the project. And whereas the project costs include replacing the water main, paving the road surface, contract administration and construction inspection, and any other ancillary costs associated with the project. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that an amount not to exceed $1,909,658 is appropriated for the project. And be it further resolved that A, the city manager is authorized to borrow up to $1,909,658 under the Municipal Finance Act and issue bonds and notes payable within 15 years from their dates. And B, the city manager is authorized to issue temporary notes in anticipation of the issue of these bonds or notes. And C, the city manager is authorized to apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, or other aid, if any, which may be available for said project. And D, the estimated useful life of this project is expected to exceed 15 years. Sponsored by Councilors David A. Witham, Martin Pepin, Kenneth S. Vincent, Laura Berry, approved city attorney.
Resolution 3625 remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting, at which time we will hold a public hearing in accordance with the city charter regarding the bond. Brings us to Resolution 3725, and as this is read into the record by the city clerk, if council would be giving consideration to a second reading this evening, that would be appreciated. We do have representatives from Stewart's here tonight. Thank you. City clerk.
Resolution number 3725, to authorize the city manager to amend the contract with Stewart's Ambulance Service to provide financial support and extend the term of the agreement. February 3rd, 2025. Whereas on October 17th, 2022, the Somersworth City Council voted to extend the contract with Stewart's Ambulance Service to provide emergency medical ambulance services for the city through July 31st, 2027. And whereas Stewart's Ambulance Service has provided this service at the paramedic level 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without requiring any city financial support to provide this service. And whereas Stewart's Ambulance Service has notified the city that current social and financial conditions are such that the city will need to provide financial support to sustain this level of emergency medical ambulance service within the city service area. And whereas the city and Stewart's Ambulance Service have negotiated amendments to the current agreement that will provide a phase-in of this financial support over a 4-year period and provide an extension of the term of the agreement through June 30th, 2030. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to amend the contract with Stewart's Ambulance Service to provide phase-in financial support over a 4-year period to sustain emergency medical ambulance services, to extend the term of the agreement through June 30th, 2030, and to take any other such actions relative to this agreement determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Councilors Martin Pepin, David A. Witham, Kenneth S. Vincent, Crystal Parody Catanzaro, Nancy Cameron, approved city attorney.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion.
Councilor Vincent, you're recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion to, for the council to suspend council rules for second reading.
Councilor Vincent moves for the suspension of council rules for a second reading on the resolution this evening, seconded by Councilor Pepin. Any discussion? Seeing none, if you're in favor of suspension of council rules for a second. Oh, sorry, Councilor Goodwin.
Yes.
Apologies.
I'm just out of curiosity, what is other than that we want to revise these contracts so we can make sure that services are being fairly compensated. What is the urgency for passing this tonight?
I just thought where we had representatives from Stewart's in the audience, they could answer questions. If council wasn't comfortable thereafter, it could be laid on the table for the next meeting.
So purely because there's representatives here?
At least one of the reasons, yes.
Okay.
Further discussion on the suspension of council rules. Councilor Pepin.
I would just like to say that we had a lengthy discussion, and if any council member would like to ask any more questions and stuff like that, I would suspend the rules if anyone has anything, because I know we had a lot of questions.
Sure, and I think that would be appropriate if we do suspend rules to act on this evening. Otherwise, I don't think that would be appropriate tonight. If you're in favor of suspension of council rules, you'll signify by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll signify by saying no. All in favor of suspension of council rules signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
One opposed. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and council rules are suspended. We'll have a second reading of the resolution by title only. City Clerk.
Resolution number 3725, to authorize the city manager to amend the contract with Stewart's Ambulance Service to provide financial support and extend the term of the agreement.
Resolution 3725, having been read a first and second time, is now before the council for any amendment. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion on the resolution. Councilor Vincent.
Do we have discussion?
After we have a
I'll make a motion.
motion to adopt the resolution by Councilor Vincent, seconded by Councilor Pepin, discussion. Councilor Vincent.
Thank you, Your Honor. Marty Councilor Pepin here made a really good report from the meeting. There was just one thing that was overlooked, was that recovery costs from companies that deal with insurance companies. So about 2 years ago, we had a bill come through the State House, through my committee. I was in Consumer Affairs. And it was to get the insurance company to send the checks directly to the ambulance company or the service for emergency service for medical aids. And what was happening is that wasn't happening, so they were sending it and somehow it wasn't being paid. Then in the whole conversation at the State House, it was also the insurance company wanted the service, the emergency service, medical aid service, ambulance, what do you want to call it, to go into network. And so I had asked, what's the problem with the ambulance service? Why don't you go into the network? And why they didn't go into network was because what was happening is the insurance company, if the provider, which was going to be the ambulance service, billed $1,000, the insurance company would come out and say, well, we're only going to give you $200. Now look, I understand we're trying to keep costs down. However, costs are costs. It's not cheap to keep people. And nevertheless, we went around and around with this. And the insurance company from the state, insurance, the guy who's in charge at the state level, so to speak, and they promised and I'll repeat, they promised to fix this problem. And to this date, it ain't fixed because the the service did not go on network because they didn't want to take it, so to speak, not get fully paid. On top of it, there's costs that are extremely high now. Hospitals used to reimburse items. You know, if you brought the patient to Wentworth, they'd give you the medical stuff that you use, maybe the whatever, non-rebreather, whatever you use, something to do with airway or airway management, whatever it was, they'd give you the stuff, and they're not doing that no more. So, listen, we got a bargain deal. We've had a bargain deal for years. We paid zero. I remember way back when our fire department wanted to take it over. Noble, great guys there, no problem. It just came with an extreme cost. 8 more men or women to be able to man or female the ambulance. The ambulance cost itself, you need 2. It would have been millions of dollars. This is a bargain deal, and I can't say I didn't see it coming. And the service that's been provided by this company has been over the top. And I'm urging everybody to vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Pepin, you are recognized.
Yeah, and there's another thing also is that there's lots of patients out there that don't have any insurance or whatever, and sometimes they can't always recoup the money that they invested into the ride and stuff like that. Also, I wanted to mention, which I didn't in my report, is that in this contract, that Stewart has a 90-day period that they can get out of the contract. The city actually has the same thing. So for some reason that either one of us want to get out of it, let's say the city wants to do their own ambulance, we can give notice to the Stewarts in 90 days. We can suspend the contract, and they can actually do the same to us, is that if they don't find it, and that's the reason why we're trying to get ahead of it right now, is that we want to make sure that they're physically capable of providing services for the city of Somersworth, and that's the reason why I want to get ahead of the contract ahead of time to make sure that they stay in business, to keep our ambulance corps in business. So, thank you.
Thank you. I would just note that, yes, this is a bit of a financial decision. I don't think anybody would debate the quality of the care and delivery of the service that we have and will continue to receive here in the Somersworth. This is merely about dollars and cents in extending that contract for the security of Stewart's. I travel the state. I am not aware of any other ambulance-based service which has had a $0 contract with a community for as long as we have, if ever. So that we are an anomaly in terms of what has been the posture here for many, many, many years, decades, in fact. I know there are communities around the state which have recently gone out to bid for private ambulance service, and their bids were, in many cases, in excess of $1 million. And in some cases, they've chosen to make that a fire service-based EMS provider, which exists in many communities across the state. But as has been alluded to, that would come at a cost of significant staffing increases that, off the top of my head, I would estimate here in the city to be upwards of $2 million if we were to bring the fire service-based EMS. It certainly works, but it comes at a cost. So even in the out year at $300,000, it is a far cry from $1 million contract or $2 million plus to bring it in-house. So I certainly support this contract amendment as before us this evening. Further discussion. Councilor Goodwin, you're recognized. Sorry.
Thank you. I guess I just wanted to explain my no vote on suspending council rules. There is a financial implication to our decision this evening. As you heard from others, it still seems a very good deal, and we very much appreciate Stewart's service to the community. But the committee meetings that discussed this were on January 29th, which was last Wednesday. It is now Monday. It's a very short period of time for members of the public, should they care to engage and comment on this, to do so. So that's why I said no, because seems important, but not an emergency in terms of getting this approved tonight. But in general, I do support renewing this contract.
Thank you. And I would note, just from a committee level, I don't think we've talked about it yet this evening, this will be included as a line item in the public safety portion of the budget. It will not be under fire or police, but a separate EMS line, as I've understood it with the city manager. So again, when we begin discussing the budget and there are public hearings around that, at least some of those budget implications will have a chance to be vetted there as well. So I think that bodes well. Further discussion. Councilor Parity Catanzaro, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate Councilor Goodwin's concerns and typically would share them and would certainly, be happy to wait a couple of weeks as well. I think one of the reasons that I am comfortable moving forward with this is because we do have that pretty easy out, 30 days with cause, 90 days without cause, and it'll be coming up again in the budget pretty soon. I do think I always like to err on the side of giving people more time, but I think given the level of importance of this and the multiple ways to get out of it, should there be an issue or should members of the community have concerns, I'm comfortable with it.
Further discussion. Seeing none, City Clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Peppin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Resolution 37-25 is adopted. Brings us to Resolution 38-25, and again here, I'd probably request a second reading as it is time sensitive this evening. City Clerk, you're recognized for a reading of the resolution.
Resolution number 3825, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Department of Safety, Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management for a Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program grant, February 3rd, 2025. Whereas the City of Somersworth has applied for a Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program grant to provide funding to update the city's hazard mitigation plan, and whereas the City of Somersworth has received notification of a grant award in the amount of $11,249, requiring a local in-kind match of $3,750. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to execute any documents and agreements necessary for the grant's execution and to take any other such actions relative to this grant determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Councilors Martin Pepin, Kenneth S. Vincent, Crystal Parity Catanzaro, Nancy Cameron, approved city attorney.
Councilor Pepin, you're recognized.
Move for a second reading on 38-25.
Councilor Pepin moves that council rules be suspended this evening for a second reading on the resolution.
I'll second
Seconded
that.
by Councilor Vincent. Any discussion? None being so, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Council rules are suspended. City Clerk, please, second reading on Resolution 38-25.
Resolution number 3825, to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with the New Hampshire Department of Safety, Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management for a Hazard Mitigation Assistance Program grant.
Resolution 3825, having been read a first and second time, is now before you for any further amendment. Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion on the resolution. Councilor Pepin.
Move for its adoption.
Councilor Pepin moves for the adoption of Resolution 3825, seconded by Councilor Parity Catanzaro. Discussion. Seeing none, City Clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Pepin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Resolution 38-25 is adopted. Thank you, everyone. Brings us to Resolution 39-25. City Clerk, if you'd read the resolution.
Resolution number 3925, to authorize the city manager to contract with Wright Pierce Engineers of Portsmouth, New Hampshire for engineering and design services for the replacement of water mains on Indigo Hill Road and Old Rochester Road. February 3rd, 2025. Whereas the fiscal year 2024-2025 adopted budget contains an appropriation for engineering and design services for the replacement of water mains on Indigo Hill Road and Old Rochester Road. And whereas city staff requested and received proposals from qualified engineers for the engineering and design of the replacement of these water mains and recommends awarding a contract to Wright Pierce Engineers. And whereas city staff reviewed the recommendation with the Finance Committee and they support contracting with Wright Pierce Engineers for an amount of $110,000 for the engineering and design services and recommends including a contingency in the amount of $10,000. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to contract with Wright Pierce Engineers of Portsmouth, New Hampshire for engineering and design services for the replacement of water mains on Indigo Hill Road and Old Rochester Road. And be it further resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager may increase the contract by an additional $10,000 for contingencies to an amount not to exceed $120,000 and to take any other such actions relative to this contract determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Councilors David A. Witham, Martin Pepin, Kenneth S. Vincent, Laura Berry, approved city attorney.
Resolution 39-25 will remain in first reading until our next regular meeting. Brings us to agenda item 16, other, which is a vote to request the Secretary of State's assistance in scheduling a special election to fill the vacant District 12 state representative seat. Discussion. Councilor Vincent.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the reason why we have to have a special election, I don't know if people know, I figured I'd let them in on it, is that one of the people that ran actually moved out of district. I just wanted to make that clear. That's what's causing a special election. I have heartburn sometimes with special election. Not in this case because you have to move and you can't always stay in one spot. But it does come at a cost to the city. I'd like to know how much that cost would be. It's not relevant at this time, but I'm obviously in favor of sending it to the Secretary of State.
I have a question, and I'm not sure anybody here can answer it. I know when we have a vacancy on the city council or school board, we do not have a special election for that. We have mechanisms in our charter to fill it temporarily until such time as there is an election, and then we fill it then. The state has no such mechanism. City clerk is giving me a no.
No.
So,
That guy may be the guy to ask.
yes, Councilor Vincent, I agree with you. There is a cost. And that cost is not only a financial one, but is also a cost to our volunteers that staff our polling places. So
What do you do?
I assume that Rollinsford, if they're part of this district, would be able to take it up as part of their town elections, which are immediately forthcoming. So they're lucky. We are not, right? So, yeah. Further discussion. Councilor Gibson.
Do we have to coordinate with Rollinsford?
I'm seeing a nod of the head, yes.
Okay. So their meeting is in March?
That was just a guess. I don't know how that coordination would take place. That would be up to the city clerk to coordinate that. Further discussion. Councilor Parity, Catanzaro.
Just speaking from observation, in the past, I think it would make a lot of sense, and I would anticipate that it would be on town meeting day. And while we're not somebody who typically goes at this time of year, at least there's that benefit of it being in the news, and so we'd benefit a little bit from that, PR push from the Secretary of State, since we do have at least one neighboring community that will be having an election at the same time. The challenge will be getting the word out to enough Somersworth folks who are not used to voting in March, if that's when they
It might help
end
us
up
get from a
scheduling it.
3% voter turnout to 5%.
Yeah, let's get it up there, guys. Come on. Thanks.
Further discussion. Councilor Gibson.
I'll be honest, I'm totally unfamiliar with the process for a special election for state representative. How do candidates just sign up?
Public notice.
I suppose there would be a public notice, and there's a filing period, as there would typically be. The filing period would be in alignment with whatever the date is for the election. Which is Tuesday. Oh, gotcha. So, thank you for that, Madam Clerk. I would be curious to see what would happen if we said no, but Further discussion? Seeing none, I will request a roll call vote regarding this item. If you're in favor of the requesting the Secretary of State's assistance for the special election, you will state by saying yes. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Counselor Peppin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
Witham.
No.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
And the vote passes. Thank you. Brings us to agenda item number 17, which is closing comments by visitors. Are there any closing comments by visitors this evening? Seeing none, that brings us to closing comments by council members. We'll start with Councilor Peppin in Ward 1.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to, I have a scanner and it's on fire because that's where I came from, so I listen to them constantly. And I would just like to say one thing. Thank you, Stewart Ambulance, for all the service that you do. Thank you for the fire department for backing them up. Just about, it sounds like just about every call they go on. Of course, I don't hear Stewart Ambulance on my scanner, so I don't really know. I know they've gone to a lot more calls than what they back up. And the Somersworth Police Department, working together as a team and a group, I can't say how proud it makes me feel that our community does the service that they do for the citizens of Somersworth. And my hat's off to you and thank you so much. I don't know how you guys keep up with the calls. I mean, they're back to back today. Back when I was on the fire department, it was nothing like it is today. I don't know how they can keep up with all the calls that they're receiving right now. And that's fire, police, and Stewart's Ambulance. My hat's off to you. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Vincent, you're recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll piggyback that. We have a new person in charge at Stewart's, fairly new because Paul Robitis moved on. Then it goes down to the fire chief, who's over a year now, and then the police chief, who's been here I lose track, 2 or 3 years. Your service has been impeccable as leaders. And you know how I feel, especially where I came from on the previous leader, but we won't go there. But thank you so very much, gentlemen, for doing an outstanding job.
Thank you, Councilor. Ward 3, Councilor Gibson.
No comment.
Ward 4, Councilor Parity Catanzaro.
Yes, thank you. I just want to encourage folks to continue reaching out to us if you have issues, questions, and especially with the budget coming up. As was referred to, this is going to continue coming up in the coming weeks and months as we look at our budgets. We have a meeting of the Communications and Community Outreach Committee, which I chair ahead of the next City Council meeting, so that's February 18th. One of the things that we are working on is a small to start, but maybe to grow in the future, a little welcome packet, welcome letter to new residents. But I just can't stress how important it is that you reach out. We don't hear from people as much as we would like to. And one of the things on our agenda, February 18th, our next council meeting, is the updated leash laws. So a resident reached out to me about that and just with some concerns. And after discussing with the police and our city manager, there's a little bit of ambiguity in our current laws around, what's the real enforcement there if there is a dog that attacks someone on running at large and such. So I think it's easier to make some impact locally than some people think. And so I just really want to encourage you to reach out to us if you have ideas and certainly input on the budget, especially if it comes along with a solution or idea. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Ward 5, Councilor Michaud.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. Go to the at-large side, Councilor Goodwin.
I guess my only comment is, did we skip comments by visitors?
No.
Oh, it just moved quickly, huh?
I did.
Wow, all right, I blacked out. All right, no comments.
I really did. Councilor Vincent caught me on a true error. Sorry. This time. Close. Councilor Cameron.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to Stewart's Ambulance as well. I was fortunate enough to sit in on that meeting, which I normally don't, and I learned a lot, and I find it almost amazing that you've gone as long as you have without having to do something like this, and certainly appreciate the spreading out of the increments that will certainly help the city, but also very important in keeping you on board with us, so thank you for that. And I'd also like to thank Public Works, because after there's a snowstorm, you always read these negative comments on Facebook about they didn't do this, they didn't do that, yada, yada, yada. But I like to say thank you because they do a great job. How many of us stay up 36 hours or more? How many of us know how to drive a plow truck? But they're very critical on there to say that, they were terrible, they didn't do this, they didn't go to the curb. Well, you know what, guys? Get your license, apply for the job, and work with our city plow people because they're excellent. So thank you. And I'd like to thank the 5 people on the Ethics Committee that stepped up and wanted to be on that. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Councilor Cameron. I'd jump on your coattails with regard to Public Works, but importantly, for those folks that do park on city streets, and I know we have a lot, particularly in the downtown area, the city does have email notification for parking bans, Nixle notification, so kind of a text alert. It's posted on our city website. There's lots of ways to find out if there's a parking ban. You can call the number that's posted on the signs at the gateways to the city. Again, just lots of ways to find out. I get all of those, and I don't know, I'm weird. I even call the phone number to make sure it's accurate, Director, and it is. And I park my car in a garage. So I feel well informed, and I don't need to be so informed, but it's good to know. Yet another notification, there's a parking ban tomorrow night for snow removal in the downtown area only. Look for the details of that online or on your various alerts. With that, brings us to any future agenda items. You can see the mayor or the city clerk. We don't have any non-public this evening. Chair will entertain a motion on adjournment made by Councilor Vincent, seconded by Councilor Parity Catanzaro. If you're in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.